Have you ever stopped for a moment and asked yourself, what if there's something quietly stealing your vitality and purpose without you even noticing? A subtle force, one that doesn't announce its arrival with loud, dramatic moments, but instead slips in, slowly and silently, until one day, you look in the mirror and realize that the person staring back at you is not who you once were. Not because of the passing years, but because you stopped fighting for yourself. The spark that once lit up your days seems to have faded, and all that's left is a quiet surrender. But what if I told you this doesn't have to be the story of your life? What if you have the power to reclaim what's slipping away? And what if aging doesn't need to be the end of something, but rather the beginning of something even greater, something far more powerful than you ever imagined? The Buddha once said, "You only lose what you cling to." These words hold the key to understanding a hidden trap that we all face, often without even realizing it. The suffering that we associate with old age, whether it's the wrinkles on our face, the slowing of our bodies, or the fading of our energy, doesn't come from the ticking of the clock or the passage of time. It comes from attachment, from stagnation, from the slow, quiet erosion of meaning in our lives. It's not age that robs us of our vibrancy. It's the moment we stop growing, when we cling to comfort, when we settle into routines and stop challenging ourselves. And here's the amazing news. You can rise above this. You don't have to fall victim to the trap of aging. What if I told you that aging could be the gateway to transformation, wisdom, and a renewed sense of purpose and vitality? It can be, but the choice is yours. Will you let the quiet forces of time steal your energy, your curiosity, and your spark? Or will you rise, stronger and more alive than ever, ready to meet each day with purpose, with passion, and with a mind that never stops seeking? If you're ready to challenge the idea that age means stagnation, if you're ready to fight for a life filled with purpose and constant growth, then stay with me. This journey is about unlocking the true power of aging, and I promise it's going to change how you see the world and yourself. Before we dive deeper, do me a favor. If you felt the stirrings of curiosity, if you've ever wondered about the possibility of living a life of unrelenting growth, go ahead and like this video, subscribe to Zen Mind Journey, and comment below with your thoughts. I want to hear your perspective, because we're in this together, on a shared path toward enlightenment, strength, and vitality. And trust me, this is just the beginning. So, let's continue this journey with open hearts and open minds. The silent erosion, why people disappear. The process of spiritual and physical decline often begins in ways we barely notice. At first, it can feel like a well-deserved reward, resting after years of hard work, enjoying the comfort of routines that offer predictability and security. The mind can trick us into thinking that we've earned this rest, that we've done our part, and now it's time to settle in. But what we don't realize is that this so-called comfort is, in fact, the very beginning of decay. Imagine a river flowing freely. As long as the water is in motion, it remains clean, fresh, and full of life. But the moment it stops, the water stagnates. It becomes murky, lifeless. This analogy can easily be applied to our minds, spirits, and bodies. The moment we stop moving, whether mentally, physically, or emotionally, we begin to stagnate. And just as stagnant water breeds decay, so too does a stagnant life. Buddhist philosophy teaches us an important truth. Life is impermanent. Change is constant. Our environment, our relationships, our own bodies, all these things are always in flux. The only way to avoid suffering is to embrace this impermanence, to adapt and evolve with it. Yet, we resist change. We cling to the idea of stability, of comfort, and that's when the suffering begins. People don't fade away simply because they age. They fade because they stop engaging with life. When curiosity fades, when the hunger for knowledge and growth dims, that's when we truly begin to die, not physically, but mentally and spiritually. This is something I've witnessed in the life of a retired professor I once knew. He spent decades in academia, shaping young minds, debating ideas, and constantly pushing the boundaries of his knowledge. But after he retired, something changed. He convinced himself that his work was done, that he had earned the right to rest. No more deadlines, no more pressures. He embraced a comfortable routine and thought this was the reward for a life of hard work. At first, he enjoyed his freedom, long mornings without any obligations, lazy afternoons with nothing to rush for. But as time went on, his mental sharpness began to dull. He stopped reading new books, stopped engaging with fresh ideas, and eventually stopped thinking critically. The once vibrant discussions he had with colleagues became rare, and over time, they ceased altogether. One evening, he sat in his study staring at a book that had been gathering dust for months. It had been a book he'd meant to read, but somehow it never found its way into his hands. That night, it hit him like a wave of regret. He wasn't fading physically, but mentally and spiritually. He had stopped engaging with the world. He had stopped learning. He had stopped living. Contrast this with the life of a Buddhist monk in his late 80s. Every morning, this monk wakes before dawn, meditates, reads, teaches, and engages in deep philosophical discussions. His body is aging, yes, but his mind and spirit remain as sharp as ever. Why? Because he never stopped moving. He continues to challenge himself mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. The monk understands that life doesn't stop when you age. It stops only when you choose to stop. His life is a constant flow of learning, teaching, evolving. There is no comfort in stagnation for him. Instead, there is growth, renewal, and an ever-deepening understanding of life's impermanence. The difference between these two individuals lies in their choices. The retired professor, who allowed comfort to slip into his routine, found himself fading not because of his age, but because he stopped pushing the boundaries of his mind. The Buddhist monk, on the other hand, continues to engage with life fully, embracing every opportunity to learn and grow. His body may show the signs of age, but his mind and spirit are far from fading. This is the crux of the issue. We age not because the years pass, but because we choose to disengage. As we grow older, we often think it's our right to slow down, to rest, and to avoid the challenges that once fueled us. But the truth is, rest can be a trap. It's easy to convince ourselves that we've done enough, that we deserve to settle into a comfortable routine. But in doing so, we allow ourselves to fade, mentally, spiritually, and emotionally. Just like the river that ceases to flow, we become stagnant and lifeless when we stop challenging ourselves. The key to staying alive, truly alive, is to keep moving. Whether it's learning something new, exploring new ideas, or simply engaging with the world around us, we must continue to flow. Only then can we avoid the silent erosion that comes with age. In the end, it's clear, our vitality is not determined by the number of years we've lived, but by the choices we make every day to stay curious, engaged, and active. So, let us learn from the Buddhist monk, who shows us that aging is not about slowing down. It's about continuing to move forward, with wisdom, with strength, and with purpose. The dangerous illusion of retirement. In today's world, retirement is often portrayed as the ultimate reward for a life of hard work. It's seen as a time to finally rest, to step back from the demands of the workplace, and to enjoy the fruits of one's labor. But if we really take a step back and think about it, we must ask, rest from what? Rest from learning? Rest from growing? Rest from contributing? For many, retirement seems to promise an end to the pressures of daily life. But in reality, this so-called rest can often lead to a deeper, more subtle form of stagnation. The idea that retirement is a time to simply stop, to disengage from the world, is an illusion, a dangerous one. If we see retirement as a finish line, as a point where we can rest from all the hard work, then we've fallen for a trap. Life itself is the journey, and there is no final stop where we simply rest on our laurels. The moment we stop contributing, the moment we stop growing, we start to fade, both mentally and spiritually. Think of a warrior who has spent decades honing his skills, sharpening his blade, and preparing for battle. For years, he has lived with purpose, constantly striving to improve. But one day, he's told that his time has passed. He's given permission to lay down his sword, to rest, to stop fighting. At first, it feels like a relief, a well-earned break after all the years of service. But over time, something begins to change. His strength diminishes. His body loses its edge, and more importantly, so does his spirit. His once sharp mind becomes dull, and the fire that drove him to greatness fades into the background. This warrior isn't just aging physically. He is fading in purpose and engagement with life. The trap of retirement isn't that it's a time of rest, but that it's a time of disengagement. The moment he puts down his sword, the moment he ceases to push forward, is the moment his vitality begins to slip away. This is the danger of retirement that many fail to recognize. It's not the physical rest that harms us, but the mental and emotional disengagement. When we stop actively engaging with the world around us, we stop growing. We stop learning. We stop contributing. And in doing so, we start to lose the very essence that makes us feel alive. The mind, like any other muscle, needs constant challenge to stay sharp. Without that challenge, we begin to stagnate, both in thought and in spirit. A Zen master once said, "In the beginner's mind, there are many possibilities. In the expert's mind, there are few." This teaching holds a powerful lesson. The more we learn, the more we realize how much we don't know. The more we engage with the world, the more we see new opportunities and ideas. But when we stop seeking, when we stop challenging ourselves, we begin to narrow our focus. We lose the ability to see beyond the limited scope of what we already know. This is the true danger of the expert's mind, or, in this case, the mindset of the retiree who feels there's nothing more to learn or contribute. When we stop exploring, we stop growing. And when we stop growing, that's when we truly begin to fade. Contrast this with the lives of great masters, especially those in fields like Zen Buddhism or other disciplines of lifelong learning. These masters never stop engaging. They never stop growing. Even in their advanced years, they remain sharp, inquisitive, and involved in the world around them. Their purpose doesn't end when they retire from a formal position or activity. Instead, they transition from one form of contribution to another, constantly evolving, constantly seeking new wisdom. They understand that retirement, as society often defines it, is not about disengagement, it's about transformation. The true path forward is to maintain a mindset of constant curiosity, to remain engaged with the world, no matter how old we are. Life does not have a retirement age. It is about embracing every new chapter, every new lesson, and every opportunity to grow, to learn, and to contribute to the world around us. The moment we stop striving, that's when we begin to diminish, not because of age, but because of the choices we make to disengage. The power of keep moving. As we age, it's easy to slip into the comfortable illusion that slowing down is natural, that it's our right to rest after years of work and effort. But the truth is, this slowing down, especially mentally and physically, can lead to something much worse, stagnation. And stagnation, as it turns out, is not merely the absence of movement. It's the beginning of decline. In all areas of life, physically, mentally, and spiritually, movement is key to maintaining vitality, to staying sharp, and to continuing growth. The moment we stop moving, we begin to fade, whether we realize it or not. Consider the concept of movement in a physical sense. The body was designed to be active. From walking to exercising to simply moving through the day, our bodies need consistent activity to remain healthy. When we stop moving, when we stop exercising, stretching, and challenging our bodies, that's when we begin to lose strength, flexibility, and energy. Our muscles weaken, our bones grow brittle, and our endurance wanes. But the reverse is also true. When we keep moving, even in small ways, we maintain strength, flexibility, and energy. It's not about pushing the body to extremes. It's about consistent, gentle motion. Now, think about the mind. Just as the body requires physical movement, the mind needs mental stimulation. It needs to be challenged, to be exposed to new ideas, and to be continually engaged. When we stop learning, when we let our curiosity fade, our minds begin to dull. The world around us moves forward, and we risk becoming stuck in the past, relying on the knowledge we gained years ago, rather than seeking new wisdom. But when we keep learning, when we challenge ourselves to engage with new ideas, to read, to think critically, our minds stay sharp. Learning keeps us young, keeps us evolving, and keeps our minds active and fresh. Take the story of Joseph, a retired engineer, as an example. After spending decades working in a field that constantly challenged his problem-solving skills, Joseph thought retirement would bring him the peace and relaxation he deserved. At first, it did. He found himself enjoying long afternoons, reading, watching TV, and spending time with his family. But after a while, something began to change. He noticed that his energy, once so abundant, began to wane. He felt sluggish, both mentally and physically. His body ached more often, and his mind wasn't as sharp as it used to be. His life had settled into a comfortable routine, but he was no longer growing. One day, his grandson handed him a book on coding and asked him to help build a small project together. At first, Joseph was resistant. He thought he was too old to learn something so complex, too far removed from the technical world to dive into such a challenge. But his curiosity took over, and despite his initial hesitation, he decided to give it a try. As he learned to code, something remarkable happened. His mind began to wake up again. He found himself excited to solve problems, to learn new concepts, and to challenge his thinking. What Joseph discovered was simple but profound. Growth doesn't stop when we retire. It's not about age, it's about engagement. The moment Joseph chose to keep learning, he reignited his curiosity and mental vitality. He proved to himself that it was never too late to start something new, to push his boundaries, and to keep growing. Through the process of learning to code, he found a renewed sense of purpose and direction. This is the power of movement, not just physical movement, but mental and emotional movement as well. When we stop challenging ourselves, we begin to stagnate. But when we continue to seek, to explore, to learn, and to grow, we stay alive, not just in body, but in mind and spirit. The key to staying vibrant throughout life is to keep moving. This doesn't mean we need to push ourselves to extremes. It simply means staying curious, remaining engaged, and never letting go of the drive to grow. In Joseph's case, coding became his new challenge. It was the doorway to a renewed sense of vitality, and it reminded him that life's most powerful tool is curiosity. His example teaches us that, no matter our age, we can continue to evolve. So, whether it's learning a new skill, picking up a book we've always wanted to read, or taking on a new physical challenge, the secret to staying young, both in mind and body, is movement. Keep moving, and you'll never stop growing. The power of company. The people you surround yourself with play a pivotal role in shaping your thoughts, attitudes, and ultimately your personal growth. This is especially true as we age. We often underestimate how much influence our social circles have on our mental and emotional well-being. The company we keep can either propel us forward into continuous growth or pull us into the stagnation of complacency. Consider two elderly men with very different approaches to life. The first man spends his days surrounded by people who dwell on the past. Their conversations revolve around old memories, regret, and the things they wish they had done differently. They talk about the good old days and find comfort in reminiscing about a time when they were younger, more active, and more engaged with life. Over time, the man becomes increasingly absorbed in these conversations, losing his connection to the present and his enthusiasm for the future. He becomes stuck in a loop of nostalgia, which prevents him from moving forward. His mind and spirit slowly fade because, instead of engaging with the world, he is stuck revisiting a past that no longer serves him. Now, consider the second man. He surrounds himself with thinkers, dreamers, and seekers, people who challenge him to think deeply, explore new ideas, and question the world around him. These individuals encourage him to continue learning, growing, and evolving. They share knowledge, exchange experiences, and inspire each other to stay curious. The conversations they have are stimulating, pushing each person to stay engaged with life and with new possibilities. The man remains mentally sharp, emotionally vibrant, and spiritually alive because he is surrounded by those who are striving for growth, not resting on their laurels. He stays focused on the present and the future, constantly seeking new challenges and opportunities for development. The difference between these two men is clear. One is fading, mentally and emotionally, while the other is thriving. Their circumstances, however, are not dictated by age, but by the choices they make about who they surround themselves with. The man who surrounds himself with people who dwell on the past is choosing to stay in stagnation. He has chosen to engage in conversations that reinforce the belief that his best days are behind him. On the other hand, the man who spends his time with growth-minded individuals is actively choosing to keep learning, questioning, and seeking new experiences. This contrast highlights a powerful truth. The company you keep has the ability to either elevate you or pull you into stagnation. It can be tempting to surround ourselves with people who comfort us by reinforcing familiar, sometimes nostalgic ideas. However, This can often lead to a sense of disengagement and a lack of purpose. We become complacent and stop seeking new growth or opportunities. The Buddha, in his teachings, emphasized the importance of Sangha, a community of seekers. Sangha, in Buddhist tradition, refers to a community of individuals who support one another in their spiritual and personal journeys. This community is not made up of passive individuals who simply accept the status quo, but of those who are constantly striving to improve, to seek knowledge, and to grow. A good companion, according to the Buddha, is essential for spiritual development because they challenge us, motivate us, and keep us engaged in the process of growth. The power of company goes beyond just physical presence. It influences our mindset, our energy, and our ability to stay engaged with life. Being surrounded by people who are curious, passionate, and open-minded encourages us to maintain our curiosity and passion for life as well. The conversations we engage in, the ideas we explore, and the goals we set are all deeply impacted by the people with whom we share our time. Take the story of Haruki, an elderly man who had spent much of his life immersed in learning and intellectual pursuits. As he entered his later years, he found himself becoming more isolated, spending time with people who were content to settle into their routines and were no longer intellectually curious. Over time, Haruki began to feel his mind dulling. The deep discussions he once enjoyed with his peers became fewer and fewer, and he began to experience a sense of mental stagnation. It wasn't that his mind had lost its potential, but that his environment no longer challenged him. One day, Haruki had a chance encounter with a group of young people who were passionate about philosophy, art, and new ideas. Their conversations were full of questions, contradictions, and fresh perspectives. Haruki felt a spark reignite within him. For the first time in years, he felt truly challenged, his mind awakened by the energy and curiosity of these young thinkers. He realized that his isolation and lack of engagement with the world around him had been holding him back. By reconnecting with individuals who had a hunger for knowledge and exploration, Haruki found his own enthusiasm for learning and growth renewed. Haruki's story underscores a critical lesson. The people you spend your time with can either propel you forward or hold you back. When we choose to surround ourselves with individuals who inspire, challenge, and push us to grow, we remain vibrant, mentally engaged, and emotionally fulfilled. But when we isolate ourselves or spend time with people who no longer have the same drive for growth, we risk falling into stagnation. This principle is true at any age. Whether we are young or elderly, the company we keep profoundly impacts our ability to stay engaged with life. Surround yourself with people who inspire you to think, to question, to grow, and you will find that the possibilities for your own personal development are endless. When we allow ourselves to be surrounded by thinkers, dreamers, and seekers, we too become part of that journey, constantly evolving, constantly becoming. The true secret of staying alive, finding meaning. At the core of every human experience lies the profound need for purpose. Purpose is not just a nice-to-have. It's a fundamental element that shapes our lives, our actions, and our overall well-being. In fact, the most dangerous thing you can lose is not your physical vitality, but your sense of meaning. When we lose sight of why we're living, when we fail to understand the deeper reasons behind our actions, life starts to lose its color. This isn't about age, but about the internal drive that gives our lives direction and significance. Without meaning, even the most vibrant of lives can become dull. As we grow older, we may start to believe that our purpose is tied to past achievements, our career, our physical abilities, or the roles we once played in society. But the truth is, purpose is not static. It evolves with us. When we lose that sense of purpose, when we believe that our best years are behind us, we begin to slip into a quiet form of despair. This is when life starts to feel like it's just passing by rather than being actively lived. Take, for instance, the story of a retired painter. This man had spent his entire life immersed in the world of art, creating beautiful pieces that spoke to the soul. He had built a reputation, had been celebrated for his talent, and for years, art was his purpose, his reason for waking up every day. But as time went on, he began to feel that his best years were behind him. His hands trembled, his vision blurred, and he thought that he no longer had the skill or energy to create anything of value. He convinced himself that he had nothing left to give the world, and as a result, he stopped painting. The joy and fulfillment he once found in his work vanished, and he found himself drifting through the days without purpose. However, everything changed when his granddaughter brought him a set of pastels and encouraged him to start creating again. Initially, he resisted. How could he create something worthwhile with his hands shaking and his vision failing? But her encouragement, coupled with his own growing desire to rekindle that spark, led him to pick up the pastels and try once more. What he found was transformative. As soon as he began to draw, something inside him reignited. The act of creation brought him joy once more. It reminded him that while his purpose as a painter had evolved, he may no longer create masterpieces or engage with galleries. The act of creating was still powerful. The meaning in his life hadn't disappeared. It had simply shifted. Through this process, the retired painter rediscovered that purpose doesn't have to remain fixed. It can change, adapt, and take on new forms as we age. He realized that the world still needed his creativity, his unique perspective, and his stories. His purpose was not about what he had done in the past, but about what he could still contribute. As long as he continued to find meaning in his life and engage with his passion for art, he was far from done. This story illustrates the powerful truth that purpose is not confined to any single stage of life. As we grow older, our roles may shift. Retirement, loss of physical ability, or changes in personal circumstances may all alter our daily routines. But that doesn't mean our sense of purpose needs to end. The secret to staying alive, truly alive, is to keep finding meaning, no matter where we are in life. Purpose is not just about achieving specific goals or living up to expectations set by others. It's about continuing to contribute to the world in whatever way we can. For the retired painter, that meant reconnecting with his love for art. For someone else, it may be mentoring younger generations, sharing wisdom, volunteering, or discovering new creative outlets. The key is that purpose allows us to remain engaged with life and to keep contributing, whether through our talents, our knowledge, or our experiences. The world still needs us, regardless of our age. It needs our wisdom, our presence, our stories. And as long as we continue to find meaning and purpose, we continue to grow. When we lose our sense of purpose, life becomes monotonous. But when we search for meaning, when we embrace the evolution of our purpose, we can keep the vitality of our spirit alive. The truth is, as long as we're breathing, we're still becoming. Our purpose may look different from what it once was, but that doesn't mean it's any less important. The secret to staying alive isn't in fighting the inevitable passage of time, but in recognizing that time offers us new ways to contribute, to evolve, and to find meaning in everything we do. So what will you do? The question is simple yet profound. Will you allow yourself to quietly fade into the background as the years pass, letting the days slip by unnoticed? Or will you rise up with purpose, wisdom, and fire in your soul? The choice is yours, and it's one that defines the very essence of who you are and what you contribute to the world. As long as there is breath in your lungs, there is purpose in your being. Think about it. No matter how old you are or what stage of life you find yourself in, as long as you are still here, there is something that only you can give. The world is waiting for your unique perspective, your talents, your insights. Every day is an opportunity for you to grow, to learn, and to share what you've learned with others. You are not done, no matter what your age or your circumstances may tell you. In fact, you are not a fading ember. You are a fire, and if you choose to keep moving, to keep evolving, you will burn brighter than ever before. The flame inside you doesn't die with age. It only grows stronger when you nurture it. But that requires action. It requires you to make the choice to stay engaged with life, to keep asking questions, to keep exploring, and to keep reaching for the things that challenge you. It's easy to let the world pass you by, to fall into routine, to convince yourself that your best days are behind you. But the truth is, those days are not behind you unless you allow them to be. Each new chapter of life is an opportunity to reinvent yourself, to find new passions, new purposes, and new ways to contribute to the world. The hunger and curiosity that brought you this far are not meant to fade. They are meant to propel you into even greater adventures. As you continue on your journey, remember that your life has inherent meaning, no matter how much the world around you changes. The more you engage with life, the more you give to it, the more vibrant your experience will be. It's not about perfection. It's about presence, growth, and contribution. By embracing this mindset, you will find that life becomes a continuous adventure, not a slow, fading descent into oblivion. So I ask you again, will you rise or fade? Will you meet the world with the same curiosity and fire that fueled you in your youth? Or will you step back, thinking your journey has already been written? The world is waiting for your awakening, your next move, your next idea, your next step toward becoming the best version of yourself. Now, before we finish, if you feel inspired by this message, take a moment to like this video, subscribe to Zen Mind Journey, and leave a comment below. I'd love to hear your thoughts on how you stay engaged and keep growing in your own life. Let's continue this journey together. Because remember, as long as there's breath in your lungs, your purpose is still unfolding. You are not done, and the world still needs what you have to offer.